What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of the Casually FC React Show. Been a while since we've done it, and since it's international break, I figured why not start fresh and get some of these out of the way. There's a few that I've had in mind. If you guys are interested in submitting your own video that you want me to react to, by all means, there is a React suggestion channel over on the Discord. So if you haven't done so already, check out the Discord link in the description below. And you guys already know housework stuff. We got the like button, which you guys need to smash because it helps out tremendously. It's absolutely free to do so. And you guys don't understand more than you could believe. It helps out channels tremendously. So help us out with the algorithm by smashing that like button. Also, if you are new here, subscribe to the channel because it also helps us with growing and expanding the channel. And come be a part of the Casually FC family, man. We have reasonable conversations here, and we have plenty of content for you guys that are interested, obviously. So smash the likes. Subscribe if you're new here. Hit the bell notification so you're notified whenever we go live. Check out the links in the description. Discord channel especially if you want to submit some of your videos for a reaction. And leave a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on what we're going to watch today. And last but not least, check out the memberships because there are 4 different tiers starting at 99p. But yeah, that all being said, ladies and gents, I'm here with Real Chris. I am Casually FC or Marshalldbdx, whatever you wish to call me. But today I figured I have a few videos that I wanted to react to that I think were interesting. And I just didn't really have the time to do it. But now that it's international break, now there's some leeway. I figured let's do some reactions and, see what's out there. So I saw this video and I did see it already, mind you. I thought it was really, really informative and it was actually really insightful. For those of you who do not know, and also big up to Culture Cams. Culture Cams is a content creator on the platform. I think he just recently started posting some interesting videos on his channel. He's actually one of the ones responsible for the Rudiger interview that we just went over the weekend. And he's part of the DR sports team. So big up to Culture Cams for this video. And he's a United fan, for those of you who do not know. So there's no real bias here when it comes to his analysis of Nicolas Jackson. So this is an analysis of Nicolas Jackson coming from someone who is not a Chelsea fan. And I thought it would be interesting to see how the rivals, or show you guys how the rivals perceive this player. And I think this is a really interesting video, simply because it is really insightful and it brings into perspective a lot of things that people seem to overlook when it comes to not even just Nicolas Jackson, but players in general. So I figured we'd go ahead and react to it. You guys already know how this works. We've done it before. If you guys in the panel, if you want to say something, just let me know to pause the video. We'll pause from time to time, give a reaction, talk, and discuss some of the things that were said and we heard. And we'll continue on and get to the very end. But Chris, are you familiar with Culture Cams at all?
No, not really, but I think I've seen him a couple of times on Twitter. I recognize his face.
Okay, fair enough. Prime, what about you?
I know who Culture Cams is. I'm a big fan. I actually watched the video when it dropped. I think it dropped like 3 weeks ago or something. I watched it when it dropped, and I'm assuming, Marshall, you had this in mind to react to anyway, but I remember I mentioned this to you a few weeks ago when it dropped. So
yeah. So I figured I think it's a good video to react to, especially now that right now, first of all, everyone's starting to react to videos now. All of a sudden, everyone just started doing it. Here at Casually FC, we've been doing it since like 2 years ago, but suddenly it's been trendy now to do reacts. So I figured, all right, let me get back on the react.
Actually, we've been doing it since KH No Filter Football, by the way. That's just
pretty much.
Yeah. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Before we got sanctioned by the government, we've been doing it.
That is true. That is very true, actually. We've been doing it since the beginning. Yeah, I totally forgot about that because that was like one of the first videos that Kai ever made was the Nini videos and the Rory videos. So, and I remember I made a thumbnail for that. But yeah, so you guys know how it works. Like I said, Culture Cam's Man United fan. Interesting to see what his perspective is on this whole Jackson thing. For those of you who do not know and have not seen it. So, all right, let's just do it up. Go ahead and get started. If you guys have anything to say or want to, comment on anything, just let me know to pause the video and we'll go for there. Also, let me know how the audio sounds. Go ahead, Prime.
Before we go, let me just clarify. Like, people who don't know who Culture Cams is.
I explained. He's a United fan. I explained everything already.
Like, content creator, United fan. This guy he doesn't like Chelsea, has a massive agenda against Chelsea. So, like,
oh, does he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what he says here isn't from a biased perspective. He's not trying to do this whole Arsenal are scary guys or whatever. He's not trying to do this gaslighting Chelsea or gaslighting Jackson. He's being very like fair and critical of Jackson, but also giving him his flowers when due. But you guys will know by listening to the video. So let me stop talking.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get this show on the road, ladies and gents, and see what we come out of this with. Here we go.
Nico Jackson.
Oh, sorry. Let me speed that up.
Oh, I thought that's a normal video then.
No. Sorry. I needed to slow it down for the thumbnail.
You know, like the intro where you do slow-mo or something.
Yeah. All right, let's start.
Is better than what you think. And I'm going to tell you why. Listen, there's so much talk about him, and he's actually becoming the curious case where it's like, I think there's a misconception about him as a player and his ability. And I want to kind of, no, it's not about debunking. It's just discussing the player without agenda, without, memes or anything like that. Just straight talk about Nico Jackson. I want to start with where he started. Everybody knows that he came from Villarreal, to Chelsea. Obviously, he came from Casa Sports and stuff, but we're going to talk about him at Villarreal. So I've got a stat about Nico Jackson, which is crazy, and it makes me think of, how do you guys see development? Do you see development in terms of experience, or do you see development in terms of minutes?
All right, so that's the one point I want to stop on. You guys will see how he breaks it down, but let me ask you guys in the chat, how do you see experience and development? And he does bring up the Villarreal thing, and I don't remember if he brings it up later in the video, but that Nico Jackson at Villarreal, that was something that keeps being overlooked by rivals and people, is that was his breakout season. And it wasn't even a season. It was like a handful of games, 10 games. Mm-hmm. And then he came to Chelsea. And last year for Chelsea was his first full professional season. Yep. So like, those the other team he mentioned and stuff, those are like Spanish League 1 or League 2 teams or whatever. La Liga 2 or something like that. I don't even know. But they weren't like, big.
They weren't top 5 minutes. Yeah, they don't necessarily count. And this is what I was speaking about Jackson last season. This is his first season, his first full season as a professional, playing as a striker on his own for the biggest and one of the most toxic clubs on the planet. And he handled himself brilliantly. Mm-hmm. With a coach that for the most part was trying to sabotage us, and he still handled himself quite brilliantly. I don't think people realize how well Jackson performed last season. Yes, some of the misses you can say are comical. That's fine. But he's still a better footballer, and goal scoring wise, percentage wise, even his percentage of misses are still on par with the likes of a Salah, a Jota, a Nunez, or not Nunez, a Isaac, a Haaland. Percentage wise, he's on par with these guys. It's not an exaggeration. This is factual. Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, what he's saying, age versus experience, it depends, because you can have someone I don't know, how old is Saka? Saka's 22, right? 23,
I think. Yeah.
Which is in age quite young technically, but Saka's been playing consistent first team football since 2020, I think.
Yeah.
2020. That's 4 years. He's a professional seasoned player. He's played Champions League football. He's been in title races. He's played for England. He's played in a Euros final twice. He's an experienced footballer at that age. Whereas someone like Jackson, they're roughly the same age. I think Jackson is maybe a year older. Jackson doesn't have any of that. Jackson has only had 1 season playing in the Prem. Jackson hasn't. He played at AFCON last year, but he didn't play minutes. I watched Senegal at AFCON. Jackson barely played. He's not played and led his country to anything. He's not led his club to anything. He's not been the main guy. He's not hit over 20 goals a season. He's not had to be a talisman, not yet. So that's why the age thing is important. And that's also what I use from Mudryk as well, by the way. When we bought Mudryk, I was skeptical, not in terms of his talent, but in terms of the fact of this guy hadn't played 100 professional games yet. He's still very raw, regardless of him being maybe a bit older, not being a 17, 18-year-old. He was still very, very raw. And people didn't realize that because, oh, well, you're 22, you're 23, you're the same age as a Saka, for example, and Saka's done all this. Why haven't you done this yet? Well, development is not linear. It's not the same. Hazard and Salah are roughly the same age. You've seen them both at Chelsea. Salah was a scrub. Awful. But flip forward now, a decade, and Salah is still probably the best right winger in the world, and Hazard has retired. Development is not the same. I don't develop the same way you do, and even in life, don't develop in the same way. Puberty hits us all differently. Our mental maturity is different. People need to start realizing this with footballers. But culture times we'll actually get into that. So.
Chris, do you want to add anything before I continue the video? Chris? Okay, Chris is not in there. All right. Thanks, Chris. All right.
Chris,
let's continue
the video.
I'll continue the thing. Here we go.
Nico Jackson only played 35 top flight games before joining Chelsea. He played some games for Villarreal B and he played for Mirandes in the Segunda division. But he only played 35 games at the top flight level before joining Chelsea. And he's 23 years old. Now, in comparison, for example, you look at someone like Garnacho. Garnacho broke through in 2022. He has already played 62 league games for Manchester United. 62, nearly double of what Jackson played before joining Chelsea, and now he has the responsibility of a massive club like Chelsea being their leading man. I think people sometimes don't think of it like that. Imagine grabbing Garnacho right now and sending him to a team, a top team, by the way, and saying, "You're our main man. We need you to go and play every single game and lead." We're still saying, "Oh, Garnacho, maybe is he better off impact sub? Is he this? Is he that?" And people will be like, "Well, Garnacho's 20, so of course." And I fully agree. But is it about the age, or is it about the minutes, or is it that's their thing when it comes to development? And I think
you know what. I think that's a super important point, right? And I think that's a really good example that he brings up is Garnacho. I just looked up Garnacho. Like he said, he is 20. But at the age of 20, he has more experience than Nicolas Jackson at the age of 23. At least at the time of last season, 22, right? So it's crazy to see that with more experience, Garnacho has less responsibilities on him because he's playing with experienced players, right? That's one thing that Nicolas Jackson didn't have. He was our only striker last season, and he was, well, you could say Nkunku was there too, and he would have been the experienced one, but all of us were under the impression that Nkunku was coming in as a 10. But he was also injured for majority of the season last season, so Nkunku wasn't available. Nicolas Jackson now has to put this weight on his shoulders. To be at 23 years old, played 32 games, and have the impact that he did is so impressive, considering you have someone like Alejandro Garnacho, who, listen, I'm not trying to slander him, but to play double those minutes in a Manchester United side that has more developed players and still not made the kind of impact that he could make at United. Which, by the way, that's not to say I think he starts for United. He should be a starter for United. I think he's one of United's best talents, but he's not there yet. Whether it be because of Ten Hag or just he's not as talented, just natural born talent. That's to be decided. But I think just seeing that contrast difference between a player who is older but has less experience versus a player who is younger but has more experience, how one differs than the other, and the output that one has and the impact that one has versus the other. Chris, are you back? What do you think of that?
I sorry, I had to do something really quickly. Yeah, like I said, like you said before, I think it is more important if you have more minutes. I think that's just clear because you look at Mudryk, who's 23, 24. He's not experienced like that enough, like to be at that age. So I think it is. And Jackson, how old is Jackson? Like 22.
He's 23 now.
He's 23, yeah, and it's like this is his second full season as a professional. So yeah, I think it is. And like Jackson, he is like our main striker, and he's our main guy, like to get hopefully the goals right. I think we look at him to get like at least 15 to 20 goals, and that's a lot of pressure to put on him still. But like, yeah, like Garnacho, I don't know if we swap. I don't know. I know this is stupid, but okay, if we swapped Jackson and Højlund, I don't think would get like anywhere near as like the numbers Jackson would get anyway. But
and I'm pretty sure Højlund has more experience. I think by games played.
I think he does. Yeah,
look at Højlund.
But yeah, like I think it's more important for more minutes anyway, at least. But Jackson, he's looking very promising. I've always quite liked him. He can be a bit frustrating at times, but he's not a bad player. For the money we paid for him as well, he's actually good for the value. So yeah.
Prime, did you want to chip in on this?
Yeah. In terms, the Højlund stuff, like I wouldn't trade Jackson for Højlund. Like Jackson, it's clear that he is just the superior footballer, and for him to like, I don't know. I just think people just need to, because Jackson is not like the most, he's not like aesthetically pleasing. Like he doesn't play like a Benzema or a Kane. It's not beautiful. People will then automatically criticize what he does. Remember that goal against Everton last season?
Remember
the finish?
Yeah, I kind of remember.
Yeah, remember how good that finish was? People won't give him the credit for that because it's Jackson. Yes. But if Kane did that, or that's Benzema, or that's Isaac, people will talk about how brilliant of a goal that is because he looks good. Palmer, 100%. What the things Palmer does looks even better because Palmer looks good on the ball. But for example, let's say Saka, and I think that's part of the criticism Saka gets, is because oftentimes when he's on the ball, he doesn't look as good. He doesn't look as fluid. But that shouldn't be a detriment to you as a footballer based on how well you look on the ball. But yeah, I think Jackson, I said this to Marshall backstage. Jackson, I think by the end of next season, he will prove to people that he is a world-class striker.
Yeah, and we'll see if it's this season or next season, but I see the potential. And Vader, to answer your question, you better be this consistent when trying to crash it on Jeremy Doku, Mr. Marshall, and crew. I'll tell you this, Vader.
You crash on Doku?
I have a Doku agenda.
Why?
But taking the agenda aside, because I think he's a one-trick pony. Taking the agenda aside, I think if you take Jeremy Doku outside of Manchester City's system, if you put him in either United, well, I won't say United, but a Spurs, if you put him at Arsenal, if you put him at Liverpool, I think a team like that with a manager who isn't super strict on systems and allows more liberties for players. And we were just talking about this, or were we talking about this? I don't remember. I don't think maybe we were. I don't remember where, but we just talked about Jack Grealish at Man City versus Jack Grealish at Aston Villa. I think because Grealish comes into the City side and now has to stick to a regimen and a system and a style of play. And Guardiola does not like maverick players who are like Cole Palmer that last season where they just kind of did what they wanted on that right-hand side, and they had liberties and freedoms to do what they wanted and express themselves. I think one of the downsides of Pep Guardiola is that not all players that come to Man City and train under Pep flourish under Pep's style of play. I think some players are bottlenecked in terms of what they're able to do because they have a certain role and they don't have the freedom to perform other roles. I think a Jeremy Doku, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to leave Man City, he actually looks and performs better for another team. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised. I feel that in a City system, you're told to play a certain way and to stick to playing that way. Just like an Estavio. I feel like Estavio, although he looks great right now and he looks like he's doing well in City system, I think he would actually benefit more from a team that gives him more liberties like a Newcastle or a Chelsea or so on and so forth. I think there are players that do benefit from Guardiola's system. We have a Rodri. We have Kovacic who looks good in his system. Kevin De Bruyne. Ilkay Gundogan. You know, there are players out there. But I think there's also players that do get bottlenecked from that.
This whole Grealish thing, like, I think people massively have overhyped and overrated Grealish at Aston Villa to a point where they're now calling him a flop. He's not a flop. Grealish was never world class at Aston Villa. He wasn't. I'm going to be honest. I didn't like.
I disagree with that.
I said this when he was at Villa. I think he was good.
He was at
Villa.
Least in that trajectory.
Like, I think he's better now though. He's a lot more controlled now. He's playing at a bigger team.
I disagree with that too.
But you have to be more controlled now, playing at a bigger team. You can't continue to do this maverick stuff because you're not playing at Villa anymore. But you have the pure freedom because they're all going to play for you. At a bigger team, you have to play for the team. You have to play for the team in order to be successful and win. I think Grealish is a better player now. And this is in my personal opinion. In terms of the Doku thing, I don't think Doku necessarily is as bad as what everyone makes him out to be. And he's also young as well, by the way. The guy's still very young, and he still has a lot to learn and develop. His basic attributes as a winger, though, being able to beat a man consistently. Not many wingers can actually do that. Now, his final end product, that needs to improve, obviously, but that will improve with time.
We'll see.
Savio, I think he also works at Man City. I think, like, we talk about players, Mahrez at Man City, he wasn't bottleneck. Like, he flourished and he performed. You know, Sterling had his best, periods at City, being able to consistently score goals and perform and look good. Like, Jesus, again, at Man City, performing and looking good. I think Pep makes players look better as well. Pep made Zinchenko look better. He wasn't a defensive liability at Man City, really.
But that's what I mean. I feel like some players, and I did say this, some players do benefit from being in that system. I genuinely feel that there are players that when they leave the Pep system, you see them express themselves a little more than if they were to stay. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, time will tell. I don't think Gabriel Jesus was as good at City as he was when he was first introduced at Arsenal. I think his first season at Arsenal, he was better than he's ever been at City.
But his first season at Arsenal was a purple patch, though. Because when he first joined Man City, that first season at Arsenal, he had that at Man City. And then he tailed off. And then we saw the footballer.
But he was never a starter at Man City. Just like Riyad Mahrez. Like, I feel like Riyad Mahrez prior to City was probably better than Riyad Mahrez at City. Although Riyad Mahrez at City was great, he was elite, but he wasn't able to maintain that right wing's position. He was always constantly chopped and changed.
Because they have so much depth at City. They have so much talent. Pep is allowed to rotate because it means towards the back end of the season, everyone's fresh and firing. And it allows them to compete on multiple fronts. That's what Chelsea's trying to do, by the way. Mm-hmm. We're trying to have that quality squad there, where towards the back end of the season, like, whether you're playing Jackson or you're playing Nkuku or Felix or Palmer, Madueke or Neto or Mudryk, they've all got minutes in their tank and they're all raring to go. So no one looks rusty when we're in April and you're in a title race or whatever. Everyone's on 100% cylinders. That's the point of it. So,
yeah. All right, let's keep going on the video. By the way, over 40 of you guys in the house watching, be sure to wipe your feet at the door by smashing that like button, as it helps us out tremendously. Let's continue the video.
Mudryk is suffering from this as well. Mudryk should be out on loan. He hasn't played enough football.
Yes,
he's got talent, but you can see he's raw. He hasn't played enough football to be at the top level like a Chelsea. He needs a loan. He needs a loan. But you look at minutes, as I said, minutes to age in terms of development. I remember Jose Mourinho said a really amazing quote where he's basically talking about Rashford, and he was like, Rashford's 23, but Rashford's one of the experienced players in the team.
You're right there, Prime. Your microphone's going crazy.
No, I was saying that, yes. What he was saying.
Your microphone was like...
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. I was shuffling and doing stuff. But yeah, I was saying about Mudryk going on loan. I've been saying this. He needs a loan. He needs to get away from the Chelsea bubble and just play games consistently.
Most people are saying that, though. It's reasonable. You could tell because he's raw. You could tell he hasn't had much experience. Yeah, people want to say he's 20-something years old. I think he's, 24 or 23?
24 tops.
But he's not played nearly as many minutes as he should have at this age.
And by the way, 24, being 24 or 23, 22, being that young and not having
23.
Much experience, no, but I'm just saying within that age bracket, that's normal. It's not normal to be a Yamal at 17, 18, 19 and be the talisman of your team. That's not normal.
No. Yeah, no.
That's why Yamal is so praised, because that's a freak. They're not supposed to be doing that. Mm-hmm. And we saw it because with Mason Mount coming at Chelsea and being constantly overplayed, he burnt out. Saka, I have a fear. He's not a Chelsea player, so I don't care. But Saka might end up burning out with injuries and fatigue because he gets constantly overplayed. That's a worry with these young players getting minutes from so early and playing all the time from so early. Mm-hmm. So there's pros and cons with it.
100%. Let's keep playing the video then.
Rashford's not a young 23. He's a experienced 23. And that's the same. Look at Messi when he was 23. The guy's won Ballon d'Ors and stuff, and he played how many minutes? Bro, look at someone like Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham's 21, and he's an experienced player. He's played over 100 games. He's nearly reaching 200 games. You look at these guys, it's about your minutes. It's about how many games you've played, not your age. Jackson is 23. And at that point, you can say he was more inexperienced than Garnacho, who's 20. And I always make this example that if I walked in and I wanted to become a PT right now, and I wanted to become a personal trainer, and I walked over, basically, and it just started, and I said, hey, guys, I'm here to be a PT, and then there's a 22-year-old PT. Is it because I'm older than him? I can say I'm more experienced. Or he's been a PT since he was 17 years old, and he's got 4 or 5 years of experience, and I walk in older than him, but say, oh, yo, I'm the experienced one here. No, you're not experienced just because you're older. I mean, that's the case. Some people, you look at someone like Emi Martinez, think about how little games he played in his career up until he's about 30 something. Now he'll have the mental maturity because he's a man. He's a big man now. But he was inexperienced in terms of compared to any other goalkeepers, in terms of the top goalkeepers. So that's why his situation is so remarkable. Sitting in the wilderness for 10 years and then comes in and can perform like that. But again, he was a man at that stage. But you look at that, and I think that is something that people need to take in consideration more. A lot of people take into consideration minutes to injuries. All these young players that play so much and they end up getting washed by 27. But you got to think about that with development as well. It's the same thing. They all coincide. The reason why these guys get washed by 27 when they broke through at 16 is because of the minutes. It's because of how much they've played. They've played more than the average 35-year-old.
Yeah, that's very true. And one thing that he mentions that I wanted to point out was, he's talking about the age and experience thing. And I remember last season, people were on and on and on about this team lacks experience, this team lacks this and that. This team, the average age of the team is 23. Oh, Chelsea don't want to recruit anyone over to the age of 25, and it's like people were just hounding, obsessed over the number rather than the amount of minutes played. Like Enzo Fernandez. We look at Enzo Fernandez and people say like, oh, he's young, he's inexperienced, he's not a leader in the midfield, he doesn't have the minutes and all that stuff. But you look at the amount he's played in terms of games, River Plate, Benfica, Argentina, wins the World Cup with Argentina, wins Copa America with Argentina in the same campaign. Those games at that high level is experience. You can say the same thing for let's look at another one.
Caicedo's experience, a young age, I think. He's not. I don't know if he's experienced as an Enzo, but like Enzo's.
No, Caicedo is experienced. He's like Caicedo's like the leader for his country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's one of the big players in this.
He's a captain. Well. He's a captain for Ecuador. Yeah, he's a captain. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's like, the obsession with age and age. Like even Nani Madueke. Let's just be honest about Nani.
Very experienced, yeah.
Nani has a good amount of experience, even though he's only 22 years old, I believe.
Yeah, he's not very young.
He's pretty young, but he spent a decent spell at PSV Eindhoven before he came over to Chelsea.
Did he play 100 games before he joined Chelsea?
I'm checking right now.
His injury, he was getting a lot of injuries though, in all fairness.
Yeah,
but
I don't think he played 100.
Jesus Christ, dude! This guy was playing football since 2017 because he was in the Spurs academy. Yeah. Finally broke out to professional level football, I think in 2020. So only 4 years ago, and played a decent amount of minutes for Eindhoven in the Eredivisie. Played like it seems here. First season didn't play too much. Second season, I think he broke out, became a starter. But he had 3 seasons with PSV Eindhoven. 3 seasons, and then he comes to Chelsea.
Games that is.
Oh God, I'd have to do the math right now. Because I have to take away the Chelsea games, but. And the under 19 games. Actually, let me see if I can just do this. I'll do it by.
I was going to agree.
club.
Like, if you look at Wayne Rooney, he broke at age 16 at Everton.
Oh, I got it. Sorry, 80 appearances for Eindhoven.
Okay, he's played.
80 for appearances for Eindhoven in just. Oh, I don't know. I can't tell if this is for just Eredivisie or all competitions.
No, cool. All competitions at PSV. It's fine. All competitions.
Yeah. Were you going to say something on that, Prime?
No, I just wanted because when we bought him and Mudryk, my thing about them was like these guys are young, not just in age, but like in in-game experience. I knew Mudryk hadn't played 100 games, and I figured the same thing for Madueke. If they hadn't played 100 games, they're going to need, even though like the way football is going now, where talents are being found earlier and earlier and they're being bought for more money, that doesn't then mean that they are automatically the finished product. They're talents so they have to be allowed to grow and develop. You're gonna have to give them time. You're gonna have to give Jackson, Madueke, Palmer, you're gonna have to give them a season or two. When Esteban and Paez come in next summer or next season, you're going to have to give them 2 to 3 years of performing poorly or being inconsistent and having bad games. You're going to have to give them that period to grow. But they're not going to come into the Prem and just slide up straight away. I don't expect them to do that. I don't care how great people think they might be. I don't expect that. We shouldn't expect that.
Here's another impressive one too. Malo Gusto, who's only 21 years old, 2 full seasons at Olympic Lyon before he came to Chelsea. but he's 21. He's really young. He's fairly young. He's younger than Jackson. He's younger than Nani. He's younger than Moises and Enzo. Like, he's a really, really young player. But he had 2 seasons of experience under his belt. So, yeah, it goes to what Cams is saying. I'm sorry. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah. There's no someone said no knowledge will be prolific enough for Chelsea in the future. Fekir, Calvert, and Pickford are examples that it's not just about game time. What do you mean? Fekir, Calvert, and Pickford. The more you play, the more you become better. It's not always an accurate in football. I mean, sure, but you also have to be nurtured and coached in the right way, and you also need to see them develop. Like, we can assume Jackson will develop, yes, but if he doesn't, like this season, say next season, if he's not showing signs of actually improving, then he will drop down in the pecking order, or he will be sold. Like, so what? The same way Palmer's had a brilliant year or year and a half, well, over a year for Chelsea. But if Palmer just drops down and starts stinking for the next season or 2, he will then be sold. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, what are we doing? There's no concrete evidence that he will be prolific, and there's no evidence to show that he won't continue to develop from this point. So, you're gonna have to explain that more. Like, I don't get that.
Got it. All right, let's continue.
Jackson's praises. No, well, we can praise him for what he's been doing and the way he's been developing. No one's saying he's the finished article. No way.
Mm-hmm. For sure. It's just we gotta point out you gotta point out the positives with the negatives, and I feel like with Jackson, people only want to point out the negatives, but they don't want to point out why or where those negatives could stem from. Like, people want to overlook the fact that this is only his second ever full professional season. People seem to always overlook that. And when you put that into context, everything else makes sense. So logically, and it doesn't always work this way, logically, these players, and the majority of these players who are at this young age, they haven't even hit their prime yet. And as a result, they are still developing. They are going to improve. And when they hit their prime, who knows where that talent is going to land. Like, who knows how good they can become. But let's keep going through the video. We still have a significant amount to go through. Let me turn this off again and let's continue.
That's why. So when you look at Nico, I think he needs to be given that kind of leeway that he walked in experience and he's still learning his trade, and he's still putting up decent numbers. I mean, look at his numbers are not too amazing, but they're decent. So I think that's a factor that people have to consider when you're judging Nico Jackson as a finisher, when you're judging him as a player in general, in his mental maturity on the pitch. I think these things matter. 21 goals in 50 games, just under 1 in 2, basically, which is, I think 1 in 2 should be a base level for strikers in this era. I remember growing up, if you get 25 goals in 50 games, you had an amazing season. But now if you get 29 goals in 50 games, you're like, okay, you're serious. Now, if you get 30 plus, you were looking like you're a Ballon d'Or contender. Maybe it's not so much the case now, but a lot of players get a lot of numbers. But so I think the basis that he would need to get to is about a 1 in 2, at least. But really and truly, if you want to be elite, you got to be trying to get to higher than that. Definitely, you got to be trying to get like 0.7 a game or something like that, 0.8, if you want to be seen as like an elite scorer. If you're thinking about what Mo Salah does, you're thinking about what Erling Haaland is an exception to the rule. But you're thinking about those type of people, Lautaro Martinez. You're thinking about Romelu Lukaku, those type of strikers. You guys know what I'm saying anyway. So you're talking about that. 21 goals in 50 games. Now, that's probably not the level, but again, he's an inexperienced player coming into a new league. 8 assists. Now, the criticism of him, of course, is his finishing. I fully understand that. I think Nico Jackson, finishing wise, has a lot to improve on. And I think mainly it's the composure. Got to be a bit more composed. It's funny because he kind of gives off a composed persona, but the finishing in front of goal sometimes is just not good enough. But it also comes with his choice of finish. Sometimes he goes for a chip where he shouldn't chip. Maybe sometimes he'll go for a side foot when he could have laced it. Maybe he could have went on his left, but he's now tried to work it towards his right. These are little things that he's going to learn through experience. The decision making, man. Decision making is a thing that genuinely takes the longest to come from.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, because that's like the biggest thing, right? With Jackson, it's not even so much like it's the decision of how to approach, an opportunity, whether to take the extra touch. Okay, we've seen Jackson take extra touches more often than I'd like to admit, and it is frustrating because he loses the opportunities, right? We've seen Jackson lace it when he should have just placed it, and he skies it. We've seen Jackson, make the wrong decision when it comes to what tool to use at your disposal when in front of goal. And Culture Cam's hit the nail right in the head here. That's stuff that right now at his age, at the age of, 23, only having his second full season of full game time here, being a starter for one of the top teams in Europe, I think that's something that's going to come in time, and he's going to improve on it. Best example, West Ham, where he was a man of the match that game. He was the reason for all the goals. 3 goals that game. Was it 3 goals? Yeah, 3-0, right?
Jackson scored 2 that game.
Jackson scored 2 and assisted.
That was his best game he's ever done in finishing.
So that was his best game, and the reason I bring it up is because last season we see Jackson one-on-one with a keeper for his first goal. We see Jackson like that. He takes the extra touch, or he doesn't. He hits it right at the keeper. This season, he knew to put it between the keeper's legs. And it's that decision making, what to do, what technique to use in that moment, in a high pressure moment. Because that's the other thing too, ladies and gents, that I want to point out that people seem to overlook. There's a reason why strikers get paid so much, because it is the hardest position in football. It is the one that brings the most attention to you, because you are the one that everyone looks for goals. Listen, you can't win a football game without goals. Your job as a striker is to score goals. So that why, they get paid tremendous amount of money, because the amount of pressure in that position, how difficult it is to score a goal at the highest level. It's a lot of pressure. So for him to come in at the age that he's at and have 21 goals in 50 appearances, that's almost like you scored in half the games you showed up. Almost. It's almost there. That's impressive to do in your first full professional season. And nowadays, when we look at, finishers that are currently playing the game, there's not really many that hit 20 plus. Off the top of my head, the ones that I can name, Lautaro Martinez is one that hits 20 plus. He's done it multiple times in his career. Romelu Lukaku is another one that has hit 20 plus. He's done it multiple times in his career. Erling Haaland, of course, he's done it multiple times, and he's an exception, like Cam said. Benzema. There's not many strikers.
Haaland, Mbappe.
I said Haaland already.
What you saying, Mbappe?
And he's not a striker either.
Yes, he
Mbappe's
is.
not a striker. Mbappe is not a striker.
He is a striker.
He's
Where's
not a
he playing
striker.
for Real Madrid?
And
Real Madrid, but you know he's not a striker.
He played striker for PSG many times, and France.
Chris, how are Real Madrid doing? They're struggling. Whenever he plays striker for France,
that's not the point we're doing.
Whenever he's played striker for France, they struggled. Whenever he's played striker for PSG, he's struggled. He's not a striker. He's a inside forward.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, what you're saying about Jackson, it's spot on. That's why I keep saying, in terms of people say his finishing needs to improve, his conversion rate. The conversion rate isn't necessarily the problem. It's on par with the other top strikers around. I think it's the choice of finishes, because the fact he's getting in these positions consistently is a good thing. I'd rather he gets there than not get there. But the choice of finishes he needs to improve on certain times. Like what you were saying, that finish against West Ham, the first goal against West Ham, where he's just running, he's not thinking it, it's just going off instinct. He needs more goals like that, as opposed to the chances he had against Nottingham Forest, where he's overthinking and he's missing them.
Yeah.
He needs more just instinctual, I don't have to think, I'm just going to score. And then he will improve with time, and the more experience he gets. That's why I keep saying by 2 years' time, having that experience of, I've been here before. Last time, I laced the ball when I should have just side-footed it into the corner. He's going to know these things. He's going to learn these things. And also, in a title-winning team, at least in the Prem anyway, you would need at least one player hitting 25 to 30 goals, right? And then the second guy hitting, say, 20 to 25. And then the third and fourth guy getting, say, 10 to 15 to 20 between the two, like with both of them. Why is it Jackson needs to get the 25 to 30? Why can't he get, say, the 20 to 25 and Palmer's the one getting 25 to 30 goals for us? Because when I look at, our title winning teams in the past, Lampard was hitting the 20 to 25 goals. Drogba was getting 10 to 15. But Drogba wasn't taking penalties, so his numbers were skewed. But Drogba was doing so much work for the team up top, creating chances, linking with Lampard to score goals. Jackson does that for us already. The goals that Palmer has scored this season, how many of them have come from Jackson?
Jackson assisted him 3 times this season, I think.
And Palmer scored how many goals this season? 6, I think.
6, yeah, so half the goals did come from Jackson.
So if Jackson's giving me, if Jackson hits, say, 20 this season, but Palmer gets, say, 25, and Jackson is part of, say, 7, 8, 9 of those goals, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Jackson helping other people score, as well as him getting his 20 goals. That's fine. Jackson, for me, doesn't have to hit 30 goals for us to win a title, but someone in the team has to. And whether that's Jackson goes left wing, say, and then Cuckoo's playing up top, and then Cuckoo's getting the 30 goals for us, and then Jackson's getting 15 goals, but he's getting more numbers in terms of assists. We have so many weapons in our team that to expect Jackson to get all the goals when we have other goal scorers.
Yeah.
We have to expect more from other people. I'm not going to just say, oh, Jackson, you're not hitting 30, get rid of you and bring in someone else. Because as much as I love Osimhen, I don't know exactly how he gels or how we would have to change how we play just for him. And that might make us slightly a worse team, and I don't want that. So I rate Jackson. He's a brilliant footballer. And the fact that we don't know whether he's a true striker or a forward or a false 9 is a good thing. It means he has so many strings to his bow that he's not exactly identifiable. That's a good thing. It's a very good thing. He's not like a Nunez where you don't know what he is. Yeah. Jackson's not knowing what he is a good thing for him and for us.
Ladies and gents, about 60 of you watching. If you haven't done so already, wipe your feet at the door by smashing that like button. Let's continue on with the video.
For most players, the elite talents, now the elite ones have it from the get-go. Young Lionel Messi, Neymar, Cristiano, Michael Owen. It even took Cristiano Ronaldo a long time to have elite decision-making. That's why when I see a young player, the first thing I look at to see if are you levels apart is their decision making. And that's why you look at Lamine Yamal, who's running it right now, and Mbappe a few years ago when he was younger, they just made the right decisions every single time. And if you can develop that early, your talent doesn't even have to be all the way up there. You can be talented, but your decision making can take you next level. Like, for example, Bukayo Saka, he's talented, but what makes him, for me, above a lot of these younger talents who are more talented maybe, is that Saka, I'll say 7 out of 10 times makes the right decision. 70% of the time he makes the right decision. If you can make the right decision 70% of the time in any walks of life, you are doing a great job. And that's why I think Saka has, for example. But the decision making from Nico Jackson in those situations does need to improve, and I do think it will come. But let's actually talk about the guy as a player. There's always talk about his finishing. His link-up play, his touch, his turn, his ability to shift from the right to the left instantaneously is top level. I actually genuinely think people think he has a worse touch. And I think people look at Nico Jackson, look at him, and just see some African player from Senegal and think, oh, he's got a bad touch. Oh, he can't control the ball. He can't. That's the...
Did I not say that? People think that he's worse than he actually is because of how, like, he looks on the ball. People
say the same thing about Axel Disasi too, which annoys me.
Exactly, because of how he looks on the ball. But yeah like, again, he talked about Saka, I'll use the Saka thing. Saka, as a talent or pure football or whatever the word people want to use, he may not be as silky as a Foden, but he is more effective, for one. And two, I think he's just a better player because he actually produces consistently, or at least he tries to in that Arsenal team. I think, like, people should get over the notion of, because you don't look good on the eye to me, that means you're not a good player. You don't have to have the first touch of Riyad Mahrez to be a really good player. You don't have to. Like Jackson does so much for Chelsea that, people just need to open their eyes to it. And you know what? Maybe you don't have to. Maybe Jackson does need to prove it to you, and he will. I believe he will. I trust him. I truly trust him.
I think one thing too that, and I've been opening my eyes to this aspect of the game since Enzo Maresca's come in, but one thing too that doesn't really get mentioned, in this, what Cam's is talking about, is also his defensive ability. The thing that I like about Jackson is that the way he defends off the ball, he has a really good knack of being able to dispossess you and take the ball off you and maintain that possession, which is something that, for someone that looks the way he does, not built like Romelu Lukaku, the way he is able to hold up the ball and maintain possession is very impressive. And it's so freaking crucial for a lot of strikers, to be honest. Let's actually talk about this, right? When you are an attacker, 9 times out of 10, you're going to need other attackers to help you score a goal. It's very, very rare to be able to do it by yourself. So when I praise Jackson's hold-up play, I praise it because for him to be able to be by himself and hold off a man long enough for someone like a Cole Palmer to find the gap and play it over to Cole Palmer for a goal, that is so crucial. Buying time for your other attackers to catch up on a counter and find the spaces that they need to, and you as a striker to also be able to find those spaces, it's so important. It's so magnificent. But I digress because I was talking about the defense. It's so dangerous for a striker to be able to have a knack for a good tackle and actually be able to dispossess you in your half, because it leaves your team so exposed. And if the rest of your teammates are aware of this, they're gonna pay attention to how you move as a striker, because they know that any moment Jackson will cover good ground right here, and because he has good pace as well, and actually nick the ball off of this player. And I need to be ready for whenever that happens, because we need to take advantage of the counterattack. And we saw how successful we were at counterattacks last season. Like, despite, all the bad results and all that stuff, we had a decent counterattack. I mean, anyone else want to build off of that, or should we continue the video?
Yeah. Also, something he'll mention later on in the video, like Jackson's face.
Let's wait till later on in the video then.
Okay.
Instead of spoiling it, Chris, you want to add on to that? You're good.
No, it's like you said. I think Jackson's just a really good false nine. Like he's not like your typical striker who just sits up top and scores goals. He likes to drop in deep and link up. And I really like Cole Palmer. I'm not a big fan of him playing in 10, but Jackson and Palmer, it's definitely helped Palmer get goals because them two are really close to each other because he does drop deep and Palmer can push forward, of course. But yeah, that's why he's got so many assists to Cole Palmer himself actually. So yeah, like. Defensively, yeah, like you said, he's got good legs on him. He can run fast, like he can tackle, and he's a problem as well when he makes those runs as well. Like as a tall striker, we've seen with Van Dijk and Garnacho where he gives a problem to them. While he runs anyway at them, basically. So yeah, I agree, basically.
For sure. Let's continue.
Biggest false narrative ever. Nico Jackson can dribble. He's got a touch. He can hold up. He can link up. He's got good pace. He can run channels. Like, he's strong. You can't knock him off the ball easily. He has got a lot to his game that if I'm a Chelsea fan, I'm looking at, I'm like, we can work on this. If I'm a Chelsea fan, I would be looking at it like, maybe it was good that we didn't get Osimhen because it'll give this guy some time to develop.
Wow. I forgot he said that in the video. What do you guys actually think about that? Do you agree that maybe not getting Osimhen is a blessing in disguise for him?
It's for Jackson's season to see what he can do, like another season to Chelsea and see what he can do with Chelsea. Because if he gets 15 to 20 goals, does Chelsea need an Osimhen really? Or do we just need like a backup to him? Because if he gets those numbers and his link up is incredible, as we've seen, as a striker, like, yeah, why do we need an Osimhen? Because Osimhen doesn't give you the link up Jackson gives. No way.
No.
We know Osimhen can get you like 15 to 20 goals, but if Jackson can do that, then why do we need an Osimhen? So, to me, it's Jackson's time to prove like Macau and a lot of people wrong and see what he can do. And so far, he's had a good season so far. Like he's played well. So yeah, I'm very impressed with Jackson. I never had really anything against Jackson as a player because I quite like watching him for the most part anyway.
Yeah, and I said this since last season. Like, obviously, the finishing is a very frustrating thing, but in the way that we play, I think it's really old school to think that all goals for your team have to come to a striker. I think that's a very old school mentality. I think that's a very 4-4-2 mentality. I think it's fine to have a striker who you can link up with and he can help you create those goal scoring moments. Like, I don't mind having a striker who is a well-rounded player that can, his finishing might not be elite, but he at least has the ability to help you create chances for another player. He has the ability to hold up play, like I said, help the team, lead a counterattack, all these things that are like chance creating opportunities. And nowadays in modern football, now we have wingers that have the ability to score goals. And, Eden Hazard, Mo Salah, these are wingers that have broken the traditional mold, I would like to say, of a winger, right? That can score you 20 plus goals and just have huge impact and huge numbers in terms of GNA. I think since the game's developed that way, I think attackers nowadays are well-rounded overall and can finish opportunities. It shouldn't just be, depending on the team, but like it's no longer just a striker that gets you the goals. It's the attack now. And as a team, I think Jackson's ability for link-up play and all that to find the pass, I think it's super useful. Now, when it comes to Osimhen, though, like I think it is a blessing for Jackson to be able to develop, but I think it's also useful to have a different profile like an Osimhen, because if I had to be honest, if I were to play a team, let's say that maybe play a low block like a Nottingham Forest that we just saw, and I'm going to be relying on crosses into the box, then maybe a player or a finisher like Osimhen is a lot more useful, because why? Osimhen has a better heading ability. He has better jumping ability. Osimhen's going to remain in that striker position, so you're always going to find him in the in the penalty box area and also all sorts and all that. He has good physicality as well, and he can finish. He has good finishing. So in a low block team that's not going to give you too many opportunities to score, having a more clinical striker like an Osimhen may prove to be useful. In other games, maybe like a Liverpool, where it's a little bit more expansive, it's a little bit more room, and you need to rely more on passing ability and running in behind and stuff like that, then Jackson would be probably a better profile for that. But Prime, I'm sure you have an opinion on this. Go ahead and let me know.
I mean, listen, I said if Jackson gets 10 by January, then we can have the actual conversation of we probably don't need Osimhen. Vic said that something that if we're lucky that our players are scoring, because if it wasn't for them, you'd want Jackson out. Yeah, but by that same logic, we're lucky that Lampard scored goals, because if it wasn't for that, you guys would all hate Drogba. Like, what are we doing?
This is
That's
true.
a good point, actually.
Like, if Salah didn't score goals at Liverpool, everyone would hate Firmino. Like,
Yeah,
and people lambasted Firmino for no GNA.
Firmino, though. He's such a good player.
like that's not what we doing. If Ronaldo wasn't scoring all those goals at Real Madrid, everyone would hate Benzema because he wasn't scoring a lot. Like, what we doing? That's not like we have our players scoring, so we should be praising that instead of criticizing. Like,
I mean, we had Giroud as well, Prime, and Giroud didn't always get a lot of goals, but his link up and being a big target man was such a good thing as well. So
exactly,
it's not all about GNA, and Jackson's doing fine GNA this season anyway.
The problem I have, I don't know if it's a Jackson problem, or the way we play, but yeah, in certain situations, like what Marshall was talking about, maybe not specifically against low blocks, but when we're resulting to crossing the ball in the box, we don't have a presence in there. Because Jackson moves around a lot, he doesn't stay as a focal point within the 18-yard box or in the 18-yard box, for one. And two, our crossing ability is when Reece James isn't playing, our crossing ability is not that good.
I don't notice it.
Like, you guys we saw it last season. Reece James comes on against Nottingham Forest, one ball in the box, and we score. That was the first header Jackson scored. That's the first header Jackson scored all season, and it came from a Reece James cross. Chelsea had not put a better cross in the box last season than what Reece James did, which is we don't. As much as I agree, I would like a different option where that's why we wanted Samuel Rodion, like a physical presence in the box, be able to put crosses in. However, I don't think without Reece James playing, we have enough quality deliveries from out wide.
Mm-hmm.
We have Mudryk, who I think has a good delivery out wide, but he doesn't play consistently as a starter. Madueke, I think he needs to improve on his right foot because he's too predictable cutting inside and crossing. Sancho, let's see if he can do that, but we need to improve on that aspect of the game where if we can't break a team down through creativity, or we just need to put a cross in the box, can Jackson stay as that presence? And can we have a quality enough delivery to put the ball in for him? And for Vic saying I'm comparing with Drogba, that's not I'm not comparing with Drogba. I'm just using an example. That's not, bro. I think you're being a bit disingenuous. Let's not do this. Neto has a good delivery, yeah, but Neto hasn't started consistently for us in the Prem.
Yeah, he's starting slow to us anyway right now. He has got a good cross on him though.
Yeah, time will tell if he comes good. All right, let's continue.
If I was Jackson, I'd be, or I was anyone close to Jackson or a coach, I would be telling him, watch tapes of Samuel Eto'o. That's who Jackson should be trying to mold his game off of. Samuel Eto'o.
It's not a bad shout. Let's continue the video.
Being good helps Cole Palmer's. It's going to help a Jadon Sancho. It's going to help a Pedro Neto. It's going to help a Noni Madueke. Because he's got that selflessness about him. Now I know there's gonna be times where you just want goals, but as I said, he's got 21 goals in 50, which isn't the worst record. That can improve as the team improve. Let's not forget it's a very disjointed Chelsea team previously. Now they got Maresca. Things are starting to come in place, putting pieces together. Who knows what can happen? I expect to see Nico Jackson on the score sheet a lot more, and I think he's gonna score more goals than he did last season. This season, they've got Conference League, I believe, that he'll probably start scoring some goals in. I think when I look at this guy and I look at some of the games that he's had, I've seen this guy control a ball, turn William Saliba. I've seen him get into Gabriel, take him on. I've seen him give Konate hell, Van Dijk hell. These are the best centre half.
Thank you. And this is literally what we pointed out earlier, that and people don't want to pay attention to this. He's one striker, and even Culture Cams, who has a Chelsea agenda, right? Even he can recognize that in that Liverpool game, that one striker in his first full Premier League appearance, first full Premier League season, inexperienced striker, right, is doing bits and causing an absolute headache on Konate and Van Dijk. If we were a better team last season, if we had Enzo Maresca last season, who knows if we could have probably come out of that game with a W, because we had opportunities. We had chances.
Last season when we played Arsenal, the one we got, the 5-0 where we got battered.
Yeah.
I know it's not saying much because everyone else stank, but Jackson was the only player on the pitch actually performing. He was going up against Saliba and Van Dijk, or Saliba and Gabriel, without a problem. Going up against the top centre backs in the Prem and in the world, and he handled himself perfectly. I've seen Haaland get pocketed by Saliba and Gabriel, not get a sniff on most occasions. And yet Jackson is being able to handle himself against these guys.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too.
Misses is fine, misses and misses, but let's not ignore the rest of Jackson's attributes because he misses a couple of chances. Let's not do that.
Let me ask you guys something. When it comes to, and this is for the chat too, I'm really curious because I think nowadays in social media, we live in such a stat-driven world that sometimes we neglect what we see with our own eyes. Do you guys rate a player based on... Well, actually, let me ask you. What do you guys rate a player based on? Is it on accomplishments? Is it on stats? Is it on what you see on the pitch? What exactly... Is it a combination of everything, really? I'm curious.
It's everything.
When I look at a player, it depends on position, to be fair. Depends on position. It depends on I guess age and how much match experience. It depends on what level you're playing at. So are you playing for a big club or more so a mid-table side or whatever? But I think the most important thing for me is, let me look at your attributes. Let me look at what you can do and what you can't do. And the things that you're good at or you're supposed to be good at, are you elite? That's part of why, with Enzo, I have a lot of problems and frustration with him because I know the defensive side of the game. I know he lacks in that. That's not my problem with him. My problem with Enzo is he's supposed to be someone that can put his foot on the ball and control the tempo of a game. And he doesn't do that for Chelsea on a consistent basis. That's my frustration with him. That his strengths are not something that we see consistently.
Sure.
So it's not the weaknesses. With Petrovic, for example, he's not necessarily the best with the ball at his feet. But his other attributes as a goalkeeper, he's very good at. That's why I rate Petrovic. So I look at your strengths and weaknesses, and I look at what are supposed to be your strengths and how are you actually good at your strengths. Yes or no? And if you are, then I'll put you in a certain category and rate you. But if you're not that good at it, then, but that's how I look at things.
So let me ask you a question. because I thought this was a very. I just recently saw an argument poised, and it made me really curious about how people see what they consider best player in the world. Do you think a GA plays a huge part in consideration of what makes you one of the greatest in the world?
If you're a forward player, yes. However, like, context obviously matters. Like,
well, actually, let me ask you this. Let me rephrase the question. Hold on. Does for you as an attacker, let's just say that. Do you care more about? Do you think being world class as an attacker is more about GA, or is it more about talent and ability on the ball?
Both.
Yeah.
Because Bruno, for example, I know he hasn't done it in the last like year or two, but Bruno typically, and Mason Mount at Chelsea in the first couple of years, those two were getting a lot of goals and assists, but they weren't. Well, some people were calling them world class, but some people weren't. They were so polarizing because their all-round play wasn't actually that good when you look into their stats. When I look at someone like Palmer, yes, he's got like world-class numbers, but even if you take away like the goals and assists, he still affects the game to a world-class level. He can still change a game to a world-class level. Oh, yeah. Take care, Chris.
Yeah, I'll see you guys later anyway.
Later, Chris.
Yeah, he can still affect the game. So that's what it is for me. Like, to be a world-class, if you're talking about, say, like a forward, a 10, a creator, or whatever, you have to be able to consistently like change a game. Even if you come out of that game, you act like Eden Hazard. There were games where he wouldn't score, he wouldn't assist, but he was still the best player on the pitch because how he affected the game. You need to have that effect. You need to do that consistently, obviously, but you also need to turn up in big games. Can you do that in a derby game? Do it against your rivals. Can you do it in a quarterfinal, in a semi-final, in a final? Even if your team loses, can you still show that you're the best player on the pitch and you've done everything that you can? That's what makes a world-class player for me.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Pirlo, absolutely world-class, no crazy GA, but as a regista, he was the best in the world at controlling games. And this is kind of where I'm going at is you look at Diego Maradona. Diego Maradona is considered, if not established to be the greatest player that's ever played this game, right? And you look at his GA, it's not that high up there. Let's look, for example, at Lionel Messi. If you have Lionel Messi's GA, do you still think he's the greatest player in the world? I would say so, because of the way he plays and just how amazing he is on the ball and how he controls games.
I mean, I say Ronaldo, but yeah, Messi is one of them. Yes. Yeah,
I know goals and assists are a huge part of the game, but it's not everything, and it's not exactly what establishes you as a world-class player. You can have a high GA, and I still wouldn't consider you world-class, if you know what I'm saying. I think it's a combination of both, but I think it's definitely a lot more dependent on the ability on the ball and the talent that you see than it is the stats.
Yes, but also, in this day and age, goals and assists are more important than they were back in the past. It was more about like your flair and what you did on the ball on the day in terms, as opposed to scoring or assisting but not doing much in the game. And two, players or football back then, a lot of the top players in the world weren't consistent for as long as they are right now. When you look at, even take out Messi and Ronaldo, they're freaks. But when you look at how long Hazard played at the top level for, how long Salah's played at the top level for, Maradona, R9, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, they've not played at the top level for that long in reality. But what they did when they were at their peak makes them goats. But yeah, they don't have the same longevity as Hazard or Salah or even Neymar. So it's about affecting the game. But yeah, Maradona. But again, we know what people are like. People are stat merchants. If Maradona in this day and age, people wouldn't see him as a world-class player. People wouldn't see R9 as a world-class player because they don't have the numbers.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. Like, it's just crazy. I think it has to be a combination of both, and then you can determine. But yeah, let me continue playing the video.
In the Premier League, Nico Jackson has had some joy against them, and you're thinking about, I know it was a 10-men game, but you're thinking about Spurs with Van de Vens and Romero. He's had good games against these guys in his first season in the Premier League, and he started this season well. Now, I love John Obi Mikel. I'll never turn on my Niger brother. But when I saw his run on Jackson, I understood that he thinks Chelsea need a striker. I understand that. But I did think it was a little bit harsh. I did think it takes away from what he offers. And I think, especially with someone like Mikel, who played with Didier Drogba. Now, I'm not going to compare Drogba to Mikel, to Nico Jackson. But we do have to remember when Drogba started, we were saying the same things. He holds the ball up well. He links up well, but he needs to score more goals. And in a similar way, who do they have? Frank Lampard coming up with goals, coming up with assists, playing in the spaces that Drogba would vacate, and Drogba would do the dirty work. Lampard would ghost into them areas. Doesn't that sound pretty familiar to what Cole Palmer's doing right now? Can Nico Jackson...
Facts.
Didn't we say this last season? Yep. Was it like, I remember last season when the season started, people were bringing up the comparisons to Drogba versus Jackson. Like, I think whatchamacallit? I think people were iterating the fact that, because you know how people are superstitious, and they were saying like, oh, look, Drogba got his first goal away, just like Jackson, and Jackson's wearing the number 15, and that's Drogba's first number when he came to Chelsea, and so on and so forth. Like, there was that superstition around him. And I bring this up because at the end of the day, when you compare Drogba's first season with Chelsea versus Nicolas Jackson's first season with Chelsea, Nicolas Jackson had a better season than Drogba in his first season. And we rate Drogba. And the fans that grew up in that era were patient. Well, not actually, they weren't patient. Now, in hindsight, they like to say they were patient. Look at Drogba and look at how great they were. But at the time, they weren't patient. At the time, there was people that wanted Drogba out, I'm sure.
Drogba, the first 18 months, wasn't that good. He wanted to leave after the first season. And
he didn't like the Chelsea fans. He complained about the Chelsea fans booing him and stuff.
Jose said, like that. You can leave and be a king, or you can stay at Chelsea and be the king of kings. Bro, like it's mentality. Jackson shown because the first half of the season, how Jackson was performing, I think a lot of it was like the pressure and the Chelsea fans getting to him. Because when you see in the second half of it, when he went to AFCON and we were still losing games, and Chelsea fans saying, we need Jackson back, we miss you, we love you. And he came back and was like a house on fire. And people started getting behind him. And he started playing better and better. Jackson needs that love and confidence. Like he's kind of like and a lot of young players are confidence players because they need that sort of confidence to build up to grow. Like, again, I trust Jackson that he will continue along the right development. But people just need to be patient, because if we get rid of Jackson, or let me say this, if we didn't buy Jackson last year, right, and Jackson was around on the striker market, he would be one of the ones you guys would want.
100%, just like people want Duran now or Meridian.
And I keep telling people, he's better than Sesko. I like Samu Amrodion. I was one of the few Chelsea fans that said that even though he's not my first choice preference, I'll take him. He's a good player. He's a good goal scorer. His fundamentals are his all-round play is very raw, but he's a good instinctual goal scorer. People said, "Oh no, who's this Decepticon guy?" Guys, Jackson is better than Samuel Amrodion. He's better than Sesko. Until Duran starts consistently in the Prem, I'm going to say Jackson's better than Duran. I think Jackson, I've been saying he starts for every team in the Prem, barring Man City, in my personal opinion. And even at Newcastle, you can argue Isaac or Gordon if you want, but Isaac's been poor this season. So
he's also
Jackson
not always
starts.
fit.
Yeah, so like, listen,
that's another thing that people overlook, the fact that Jackson was available for pretty much all but one game and AFCON. Because there was one game he missed because of his wrist injury.
Yeah, bro.
That's it.
He had
He was
an
fit.
ability. Like, there's... I just...
Even this season, this preseason, he wasn't available because of his ankle, but he was able to start the first game of the season.
Bro, he got 14 goals last season.
In the Prem alone.
With a bad coach, no Nkunku, no Reece James. Imagine how many more goals he would have got with Reece James playing. And with Nkunku
that's true.
playing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He could have hit 20.
Imagine he hits 20 in his first professional season. That would have been insane. People would have been talking about him like they're talking about Cole Palmer.
Bro, it's only 8 goals. He could have realistically hit 20. What? That's what, say, 4 crosses from Reece James. That gets you up to, I think, what, 15, 18 or something? Or 6, whatever. Like, Drogba scored 16, 17 in his first season. You can see the overall potential.
I think one thing, too, that I like to mention in this, right, is that the fact that Jackson is willing to do the dirty work so that other players can shine. I actually believe this. If there was no Jackson last season, I don't think Cole Palmer has the success that he has. I think he does affect the game regardless, and he has an impressive season, but I don't think he hits the numbers that he hits last season. And to even go a little further, and this might be too far for some of you, and I know some of you are not going to want to hear this, and this is where I go back to, like, it's not so much the output, but how you affect the game. And Chris is going to appreciate this. Shout out to Chris. Even though we flacked on him so hard, and I think the biggest argument was that the fact that we bought him as a striker and he's not doing the one thing that a striker should do. The fact that in that first season that Timo Werner came to Chelsea, he still got 15 plus assists, I think was a decent argument to keep the player because there was use for him. He wasn't great in front of goal. We know. He was horrible in front of goal. Still is, by the way. Spurs, you're going to have to hold that. But what Timo was able to give us in terms of assist and creativity because of his ability to run in behind the defenders and just his pace, Tuchel was able to make use of it. And we just needed a striker that was going to be able to put away his chances. Because Timo was very creative on that left wing. Not creative in the sense of like, oh, he would dribble past the player and like, no, he just had really good pace. And if you made the most of that, he can get in behind most defenders and outpace them and create wide gaps and completely just break apart a defense.
It was chaos. And you need that. You need that. And I think what killed... Because I liked Werner before he joined Chelsea, actually. When he was at Leipzig and stuff. I think with what killed him really was Chelsea fans. Like, consistently abusing and turning on him. And it's a shame because I kept telling people that, like, Havertz is worse out of the two of them. And I'll be real, Havertz at Arsenal, he's no different from Chelsea.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but people don't want to listen.
At least with Werner, like someone put up a post on Twitter who would you take back? Mount, Havertz, Gallagher, and Werner. And I didn't respond to the tweet because I didn't want to get like backlash. But I was thinking in my head, I'll take back Werner as a squad player over the other three, yes. Because he's the least polarizing, in my opinion. He's the least toxic, and he's the most likable. Like, the guy brings a vibe to the squad, and he can actually, if you use him in the right way, which is why Ange uses him as a winger, not a striker, he can actually be somewhat effective. Yes, he still has a lot of deficiencies to work on, especially now. But to be able to take the ball in behind and create goal-scoring opportunities and square the ball when all you will need then is a striker to put away the chance. For Chelsea, he was actually being effective. The problem was Havertz wasn't scoring. And then when we bought Lukaku, what Tuchel and the fan bases did was they scapegoated Werner and they played Havertz, Mount, and Lukaku. And lo and behold, that didn't work because none of them could create. But,
So,
yeah, by the way, Jackson's not Werner. I don't want people to get twisted. Jackson's not a Werner. Jackson's a superior footballer. Jackson's not a Werner. Just to clarify.
So, just to put things into perspective, people, this is what I mean. Like, when you're at a top club, people rate you. When you're competing for the league, or competing in Champions League, or competing for trophies, people rate you. But when you're not at the top team, you get criticized a lot. And Kai Havertz was criticized a lot at Chelsea. Mind you, the season that people praised last season, 14 goals, 7 assists. Well, in 2021 and 2022 for Chelsea, Tuchel's first full year, in 3 less games, he got 14 goals and 5 assists. There's a 2 assist difference between what he did at Chelsea in that season for Tuchel's first full season, competing against Lukaku, by the way, versus what he's doing right now at Arsenal. This is the same fucking player. He has not been reinvented. But because he's at Arsenal, people now want to rate him. People now want to say, oh, Kai, Arteta's gotten the best out of Kai. Oh, we have Leverkusen Kai. Even though this is the same Kai Havertz that put up those numbers in 21-22.
It's because he's not getting, because he's
at Arsenal. He's competing for the league.
Well, not even that. Because the Arsenal fan base, for the most part, are defending him. Like, that's why I keep saying, but as much as, like, I believe Arsenal fans and Liverpool fans are the most deluded. They also defended their players publicly. But yet you'll have Chelsea fans on public, like, debate shows and on
that was
Sky
in all
Sports.
comps, by the way, people. I'm just saying, that's in all comps.
Yeah, on Sky Sports and on the overlap. They'll be the first ones publicly to say Jackson's trash. That
Jackson scored more goals in all comps last season.
They'll say Jackson's trash. Maresca's a championship manager. Mudryk's not good enough. This guy's terrible. That guy's terrible on public forums. But yeah, I'll watch the overlap. I'll watch the terrace or never a foul or whatever. And Liverpool fans to this day still defend Nunez and say he's one of the best strikers in the league. Arsenal fans, they defended Zinchenko to the death. They still defend Jesus to the death. They defended Ramsdale to the death. We'll have Liverpool, like Man United fans will still defend Bruno and Garnacho and all these guys. We don't defend our bad or underperforming players. And fair enough, at least with Chelsea fans, at least we're honest, which is a good thing. But like, we'll also throw players under the bus before they get a real chance. Liverpool fans would have defended Werner, and he would have actually succeeded there because of having the confidence. I believe he would have. I think he would have suited Liverpool perfectly. Havertz, he may not be a different player, but at least he's a lot more confident playing at Arsenal now.
Yeah. So, and time will tell because right now he has 7 or 6 goals in all competitions. Let me just see real quick. 10 games played, 6 goals and 1 assist. So 7 GNA. which is a pretty good start. But if you know Havertz, if you remember Havertz from Chelsea, we all knew he was a purple patch player. So we'll see if this keeps up. And listen, you guys know, if you're OGs of the channel, you guys know I was a big fan of Havertz, and that I really wanted him to be more of an attacking mid than a center forward. But listen, if he comes out, scores 20 plus goals in the Premier League, then so be it. Because right now I don't like Havertz. I've obviously turned a complete 180 because the guy is playing for, of all clubs, Arsenal, and the things he's saying, it's just it pisses me off. So we'll see what happens with him this season. That's another one to keep an eye on. But I'm pretty confident he's not gonna reach those numbers. And this is Arsenal fans and, you know, Chelsea fans hyping the Arsenal hype, or drinking the Arsenal Kool-Aid into believing that he is this brand new striker and he's improved and he's scoring. He's the Leverkusen Havertz and all this and that. But regardless, let's continue on with the video. We're almost close to the end, ladies and gents. Smash the like if you haven't done so already as well.
Jackson and Palmer. I'm not saying they're going to be Lampard and Drogba before everyone says that and clips me and stuff. But can they kind of form a relationship like that? Because we know Palmer's in the 10 role now. Nico Jackson's going to have to do the other side of the game. Palmer's going to get goals from it. But he's also going to get his own. I think people need to give him an opportunity to develop. But I just don't see how, if you watch football with your eyes, you don't see that this is a very, very good football player. He's a very, very good football player. And I'm actually excited to see. I think he's actually one of the most confusing and curious cases in football at the moment. I think people are looking at him like, is he good or is he not? I'm here to say Nico Jackson is a good striker. He's a very good striker, in my opinion. Very good player. And I'm excited to see what he's got. Now, I say all of this. He has 0 goals for Senegal in 16 games. Now, hey, I'm here to talk about Chelsea and Nico Jackson from Chelsea. I ain't watched one game of him at Senegal, so nobody at me about that. It's all about what he's doing at Chelsea before somebody goes and has a look. But honestly, banter aside, I think Chelsea have got a good player in their hands.
Yeah, one more time, Prime.
He scored for Senegal, by the way, just to clarify.
When? Just recently?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm also pretty sure he's not the starter because I think Mane plays as a striker there for them.
Yeah, he? Mane plays like Jackson, like barely got minutes at AFCON. Yeah, because he was on, and even the third group game when I expected him to start, he didn't play. He didn't start the game at AFCON. Yeah. So, and he barely plays for them. He only gets like minutes off the bench or whatever because. Yeah, I don't know. The manager doesn't rotate as much per se, but now performing well at Chelsea, hopefully he'll get more minutes and he'll be the successor to Mane.
Yo, big up to the chat, by the way, because Prime wasn't the only one that knew that. Vic, Curry Pirate, and Marlon, you guys actually knew that he scored. I had no idea. I don't keep track of,
You're not proper Chelsea guys, man. It's fine.
yeah, that's the problem, clearly. But yeah, no, like, if you put context to it, like, For Jackson to get minutes at Senegal, it was going to be close to near impossible because their best player, Sadio Mane, is the striker for Senegal. So Jackson getting minutes at Senegal was going to be tough from the get-go. So I think those 16 appearances or 17 appearances that are on his transfer market are probably off the bench. But let's continue on with the video then.
And that was very good recruitment from them. Now, I wouldn't jump off the ship early. I think a lot of people are, from last week when he was missing chances, thought he was a lost case. There's a lot of links to like Darwin Núñez and stuff. I think Darwin Núñez got a good base level as well, but I think he's got more of a base level than Darwin Núñez, in my opinion. And Núñez is probably can still score goals as he does, but I think Jackson, as Chelsea improve, he will improve with the team and he will score more goals. So I don't think they should be concerned about that. I actually think they're in safe hands there. So yeah, man. What do you guys think about Nico Jackson? Am I boosting him up too much? Am I overrating him? Or maybe am I underrating him? What do you guys think? I think there's not enough attention on what he does. I saw Joe Cole talk about him, and I think he was talking about that he needs to score goals and stuff, and he mentioned something about Didier Drogba. But it's all about, you know, people want to come and compare to Drogba and all this stuff. Forget all of that. Just look at him in isolation. Look at the work that he does. Look at the way he spins. Look at the way he dribbles. Look at the way he occupies the left. Look at the way he occupies the right, the center. There's not much he can't do. He just needs to get that final bit, which is becoming prolific. Will it come? We don't know. I do think sometimes being prolific, I haven't seen his youth records, but being prolific usually stems from goal scoring. It just stems from young goal scoring. You look at some of these youngsters, they've scored so many goals. Look, like for example, Mason Greenwood. You always knew that he's going to be a top shooter. Why? Because of, you look at his youth records, unbelievable. So listen, guys, let me know what you guys think about Nico, and let me know if you're enjoying this style of video.
Well, actually, let me ask you, Prime. What do you actually think about that? Do you think that the goal scoring stems from just you either have it or you don't, or you're that style of player, or you're not, or do you think that's something that can be developed?
You know what? My whole perception of football and players' development changed with Mo Salah at Liverpool.
Interesting.
Because when he was at Chelsea, even at Basel, when people said he was good, I never thought he would be this player. Oh, he's arguably a Premier League GOAT. Bro, he's like how he was at Chelsea. I mean, I'm not saying he is. I said arguably. You could argue it.
He's definitely a Premier League legend.
Yeah, I think what he is, what Salah has become, and even his first 2 seasons at Liverpool, he's as an all-round player, he still wasn't that good. His goals for me were still scrappy, scruffy, ugly, nothing really clean about him. But the way he has developed his all-round game, bro. When Liverpool fans try and argue him with Salah or with Hazard, I'll still defend Hazard and say Hazard's better, but I hear it. The way he has improved and developed, and he looks so clean.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can get to that level. Again, it's not easy, and not everyone will be able to do that. It is a bit of an anomaly, but you can if you're that focused and that determined, and also if you have a certain level, a certain base level within you. Now, am I saying Jackson's going to reach a Drogba level or a Salah level or a Benzema or whatever? No. But, well, maybe not. But Jackson's a very good striker already. The only thing he needs to work on is his finishing. And finishing can be worked on. Finishing can be improved. We've seen strikers, when they get older, they're able to develop into being top or quality goal scorers just based on the fact that they have a level of experience that others don't have.
Vinicius is such a great example of that, because we remember Vinicius when he faced us in the Champions League, the 2020-2021 season, he was garbage. He was not a good player. And lo and behold, a manager like Carlo Ancelotti gets a hold of him, and he becomes a prolific goal scorer. Even to a certain extent, I want to say even Benzema went through a phase where, because of Ronaldo, he wasn't necessarily scoring that many goals, but he was being creative. He was used as a creative outlet, got assists. And then he developed his game in a later part of his career to score goals and be prolific in front of goal.
Thank you. Been saying this about Benzema. But even I look Welbeck. Welbeck's always been a good footballer. Like when he was at Arsenal, he was at Man United. He's always been a good footballer. That's why he's been able to play on the wing to a high level. Yeah, when his England record, when he played for England, is actually very, very good. He has a prolific England record. But at Man United and Arsenal, he was never a prolific goal scorer. But look at him at Brighton the last couple of seasons. Look at his goal scoring record for Brighton has been very, very good. And that's the thing. Sometimes with strikers, you just develop that when you get a bit older. I think with Jackson, the fact that he has already his all-round game matured, if it takes Jackson, he's 23, if it takes him 24, 20. It would take him until he's 25, 26 to be able to score 25 to 30 goals with ease. I'm fine with that. As long as Chelsea have other players performing in the team and we're still competing and winning, then it's fine. I don't see, because Madueke, for example, it's also going to take him time and develop and be a better winger. It might take Madueke 2 years to do that. It might take Mudryk 2-3 years to be this top winger people expect him to be. It might take Enzo another year or two to fully establish himself as a consistent player. You know, it's going to take Colwell. I know Colwell's looking good right now, but it's still going to take him another year or two to actually turn into this potential world-class centre-back people think he is. It's going to take Fofana a few years. This is a young squad for a reason, so let's give them that time to develop. That's why I was trying to rubbish this talk of title, because this squad is not. We are not. Forget the age. We're not mature enough in. These players are not mature enough in their development to go for a title. Jackson won't give me enough goals to go for a title. Cole is not a top centre back enough to go for a title, nor is Fofana, not yet. Our midfield is not good enough to go for a title yet. Like, just being honest about them. Now, in 2020 or 2026, 2027, yes, I expect us to have developed to a point where we should be able to go for a title and win, but not now. And that's okay. It's okay not to go for a title. It's okay it's okay to allow these guys a bit of time to develop, because that's what Salah had when he left Chelsea. He went to Fiorentina, he went to Roma. That 3 years Vic just mentioned, Salah needed that 3 years to develop. So give Jackson that time. The rest of these players that time.
Here's the thing for me, though, Vic, to answer this question. Are we giving Jackson this season and the next? Yes. I am, at least. Why? And I know Prime is too, but like in general, like speaking for myself, not for Chelsea fans, I am. Why? Because Jackson last season has shown me that he is a good footballer. Like, he is a good player. He may not be, in your opinion, a good finisher or a good striker, but he is a good footballer. And nowadays, I think in this day and age, we lack a lot of players that are good footballers. And when I say that, there are players like, for example, at Chelsea, a Christian Pulisic. I never bought into the notion that Christian Pulisic was a good footballer, because once you take him away from his favored position, he became useless. Same thing with Cho. When you mind you, Cho is an exception. Actually, let me not bring it to Cho, to be honest. But when you have a player like a
why is Cho an exception?
Because the Achilles injury, you could say that the Achilles injury was really killed his career. So let me not use.
Can you not say that about Pulisic as well? His injury, because Pulisic at AC Milan he's playing right wing and he's playing 10 and he's still balling. So Pulisic is playing in different positions and still performing. So,
but with Jackson, right? If Jackson can keep, because I know we haven't seen the best of Jackson. He is a good footballer, and he has the ability to play really well in multiple ways, which makes him very malleable, makes him really flexible, and very useful. If Jackson's base level is 14 Premier League goals or 21 goals in a season, if that's your base, if you give me that base every season as you're developing and getting better and better, I will be happy. Because I'll be honest with you, base level Jackson, if last season is Jackson's base level, those are Osimhen numbers. Slightly below, but they're very similar to Osimhen numbers. Osimhen had one season where he scored over 20 goals. I'm not trying to trash on Osimhen. I'm just trying to point out the parallels, right? Because at Lille, he had 18 goal season, a 16 goal season, another 18 goal season. Like, he was up there number wise, but he had a base level, and that was consistent throughout his career. Also at Napoli, he had the one breakthrough season with Spalletti, right? Kvaratskhelia as well. And then he still, regardless of that, still had a base level. I think if he didn't get injured, we'd talk about maybe another 20-plus goal season. Maybe, right? If Jackson give me this at base level, that is enough for me to say, like, okay, I'll give you time because I recognize you are a good footballer. Right now, and Prime, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Right now, I'm seeing Renato Vega. Renato Vega is slowly but surely becoming one of my favorite players in this team. Because at the age of 21, you see the maturity on the pitch and his ability and just how clean he looks and how confident and just he knows what to do. And what he does overall on the pitch and how it impacts the game is so impressive. Like he got a call up to Portugal. He's on international break right now. Mind you, he came from Basel. He came from Sporting. He left Sporting because Ruben Amorim didn't trust him. So he went and found minutes elsewhere. This is a good player that can play midfield. He can play center back. He can play left back. I wouldn't be surprised if you ask him to play right back. He could play the right back position. He is a good footballer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Prime.
No, I rate Vega. I rate the signing of Vega. Like, actually, before the season even started, I wanted Vega to be playing center back in that back three that we have. I wanted the back three to be, and I think I even said it on here, I wanted it to be Reece, Tosin, and Vega as the left center back, and have Cucurella in midfield. Now, Colwell's been performing, so it is what it is on that one. But I really like Vega. I trust him. He's a comfortable footballer, intelligent enough to play in multiple positions to a high level. He's also got that passion, and he wants to play for this club.
Yeah, he's 100%. He's really wholesome too.
People talk about proper Chelsea and how important it is to have a reflection of the fans on the pitch. Well, you have that in Vega, you have that in Gusto, you have that in Disasi, you have that in Cucurella, you have that in Caicedo, you have that in Reece, you have that in Colwell, you have that in Jackson, you have that in Sancho. We have enough players. Yes, they're not all from Cobham, but you have enough players there that are Chelsea fans that do want to play for this club and want this club to do well. They're proper Chelsea, quote unquote, and that's important. That's important. So, but yeah, with Jackson, that's why I kept telling people, if you can't get me Osimhen or you can't get me Gyökeres, I want Jackson to be the striker, because the rest of the guys around, they're not better than him. I've been saying this. Sesko is not better. I like Ollie Watkins. I don't think he's better than Jackson as of yet. Duran, until Duran starts starting consistently at Aston Villa, no one can tell me he's better. Samu, I like him. He's not better than Jackson. There's no strikers around, barring Osimhen and Gyökeres, that are available that are better than Jackson. Even Isaac, like, give Jackson a year, I think Isaac can be better than Jackson can be better than Isaac. And also, Isaac is injury prone. I'd rather my players be durable. You know, people know how I feel about James. I want my players to be durable and play on the pitch. So, like, and maybe people can say I'm overhyping Jackson a little bit, so that's fine. I understand people who still have reservations on Jackson. I was there at the start of last season. I thought this guy was a scrub and not good enough to play for Chelsea. But he's been able to prove me wrong in the space of a year. Maybe Jackson needs another year to prove you guys wrong, and I think he will do it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, time will tell, and I do have faith that this player will come good, and it'll be sensational. I mean, he, in my opinion, and I know this is going to be ridiculous for some of you guys. I know some of you really don't believe in Jackson, but if he refines that finishing, I think the potential for this player is world-class potential. I genuinely think that this player can be a world-class player. I know that's gonna, people think I'm gonna sound ridiculous for that, but I genuinely believe it. Like, he's just a good footballer, and like I was saying before with the Maradona example, and you could say with a lot of other people as well. What to you need to ask yourself what defines a world-class player. And maybe for you, that's GNA. Maybe for you, it's just ability on the ball and what they can do. Because even when I think about it, did Ronaldinho really have that much GNA at Barcelona? I don't think so, but God damn it, he's a legend of the game. You know he's a world-class player because of what he can do and how he can affect the games. So for me, I see what Jackson does and how he affects games. And even regardless of all that, he still manages to get good output. Better output than Dominic Solanke. Better output than Højlund. Better output than, I don't know, who else is Diogo Jota. It's impressive. And these players ahead of him have a lot more experience in the Premier League, let alone just in general. And if you see that and don't think to yourself like, oh my God, this guy is young and he's still developing, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think this player can come and become like a world-class Chelsea player. But it is what it is. I will check WhatsApp. What is good, Don Hussam?
Also, I will say this. Like, when it was Drogba and Lampard, for example, would Chelsea fans have been okay taking away some of Lampard's goals to give to Drogba to get more, and have Drogba scoring 30 goals a season and have Lampard only on 10 to 15?
Say that one more time, Prime. I just realized
like,
you asked the question.
If Drogba was getting the majority of the goals at Chelsea, not Lampard, would Chelsea fans have been okay with that? But maybe Chelsea doing that don't win as much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if we take away Palmer's goals and give them to Jackson, and Jackson scoring, like, getting 40 whatever GA in a season, and Palmer's only on 20, but Chelsea don't win as much and we don't win as many trophies, will Chelsea fans be okay with that? No, you won't. I don't really care who it is coming from, so long as we're winning. So let's just focus on winning first.
100%. And, to answer this comment, I don't claim to be right about Havertz. I think time will tell this season. I will hold my hands up because you must have just tuned in earlier in the stream. We just talked about Havertz's stats and how Havertz's GNA last season is only two assists better than Havertz's GNA at Chelsea in the 21-22 season. So he hasn't improved. He hasn't gotten any better. Like, that to me is not a significant improvement. 2 more assists in a better functioning team, in a better functioning Arsenal, in a competing Arsenal, versus that Chelsea team that towards the end of the season, once we were knocked out by Real Madrid, mind you, by a sleeping Chelsea team in the first leg that completely capitulated that first leg and almost made a absolutely historic comeback in the second leg, but failed to do so, unfortunately, because of tired legs and just how much we ran. And Mudryk, Mudryk, masterclass of a pass, a half goal pretty much. Then, after that, Chelsea went downhill. I think we went in a losing streak, to be honest. Not even a losing streak, but we were winless in multiple games, and we nearly capitulated top 4 as a result. We got lucky. But this season, he's balling out. We've always known Havertz to be a patchy player. He's always been a purple patch player. Who's to say that right now he's not on a purple patch? Who's to say? What if for the rest of the season he just capitulates? Odegaard is out until December. What if for the rest of the season his goals dry up, his goals and assists dry up? So it's hard to say right now. We have to be patient. We have to wait. I think Havertz was never shit at Chelsea, but he never lived up to the price tag. And till this day, even at 60 mil, Havertz still doesn't live up to his price tag at Arsenal. Because when you look at the striker that we have in Nicolas Jackson, mind you, what I said before, 14-5 for Arsenal last season. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's in all competitions. Jackson in all competitions has more GNA than Kai Havertz. And he cost us half the price. So
and that's without playing in Europe, by the way.
And that's without playing in Europe. And that's without pity penalties, which people also like to dismiss and not take into account. Hey, Jackson got that GNA without penalties. If that's not impressive, then I really don't know what else to tell you people. And like I said, when you look at the overall ability on Jackson and his footballing ability and what else he can do, he can dribble. When was the last time we saw a striker that could dribble? At Chelsea. I don't think even, like, I know Drogba could dribble, but was he as good at dribbling as Jackson? I don't think he ever was. You see the pace that Jackson has too. It's impressive. You know, we seen him, Ward-Prowse. Ward-Prowse got sent off during the Nottingham Forest game because of Jackson's pace. Because Jackson was so fast that Ward-Prowse knew he was going to get beat out on the ball and going to get dispossessed. So he threw himself on the ball, got himself sent off for the team. The physicality of Jackson is so similar to what Lukaku was able to do at Chelsea in a small tenure. Not even at Chelsea, but just in general in his footballing career. The fact that he doesn't look that physically imposing, but you see how strong he is and what he can do on the pitch. It's impressive. All this stuff is impressive. And, you know, when I'm determining what makes you a good footballer, I'm not just looking at the stats. I'm not just looking at GNA. I'm looking at overall ability, what you can do. Mind you, like, that's not to discredit, for example, an Erling Haaland. Like, being able to be a prolific goal scorer like Erling Haaland and break the records that you've broken, that is absolutely impressive. Absolutely impressive. But that isn't the only thing that is going to make you, you know, world class or set you apart from the rest. There's other factors too. There's other ways to do it. I don't know if you agree, Prime, or if we're just circling back. Yeah, go ahead.
Fans need to, like, what do you guys want? Because when Haaland was scoring all those goals in his first season, people were saying, oh, he's a robot. You can't do anything else other than score goals. It's easy to score goals at City. You know, I would score 20 league goals at City. Antonio came out and said he would score as many goals as Haaland at City. That Haaland, was it Robbie Keane said Haaland is a championship or League One footballer. But then you have someone like Jackson, who's actually a quality footballer. He's actually a baller. But Jackson's not going to score 40 goals like Haaland. All of a sudden, Jackson's shit and not good. So which is it? Do you want, like, should we look good on the ball, or should we only get GA? Or can we get a mixture of both like Jackson has? Because I rate Haaland, by the way. I rate what Haaland can do. Like I said, I look at you, at what you can and can't do, and I look at your strengths and see how good you are. Haaland is a world-class striker because his main attributes he vastly excels at. Jackson is not world-class yet, but he is on that trajectory to get there. And I believe he can get there. And if Jackson doesn't get there, then we will have to assess, do we need a striker, or if Nkunku is good enough to step in? Because people have to remember, we also have Nkunku there on the wings, on the wings in the second team. And Jackson knows this. If Jackson drops off for a couple of games, Nkunku comes in and Jackson's back on the bench, part of the second team. So that's the healthy competition we have in this squad. No one can drop off because you have someone else who will take your spot.
Do you think that having Nkunku there this season do you think that is pushing Jackson to really improve? Like, do you think that takes a big effect on his ability, or do you think this was inevitably going to happen, even with or without the competition?
Well, Jackson said himself that he went away in the summer, and like he had a good first season, but he's still not happy. So he went away. He's worked on his game. But yeah, I do think Nkuku being there is a factor. But I also think Osimhen as well. Like, again, until deadline day, we all thought we were going to sign him, or at least I thought we were going to sign him.
We've gotten rated, ladies and gents. Big up to Don Hussam. Big up to Don Hussam. Thank you so much for the raid. I just saw the notification. It disappeared, but we did get rated by Don Hussam. Ladies and gents, welcome to Casually FC. We were just analyzing the Culture Cams video on Nicolas Jackson and the assessment that he has on Nicolas Jackson, and just having an honest conversation on Chelsea's striker position, the history of it, and what entails, getting time and so on and so forth. We're basically talking about Nicolas Jackson, but big up to everyone coming from Hussam's raid. Thank you so much, Don Hussam, for the raid. If you haven't done so already, ladies and gents, be sure to smash the like button on your way in. Wipe your feet at the door. It's only the kind gesture to do. Smash up those likes. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new here as well. And big up to Don Hussam as well. Thank you again so much for the raid. I believe they were just doing a collab over there with Matisse talking about Chelsea and Liverpool, which is going to be a big test for Chelsea this season. But I believe in the team, and I think we are going to get a result despite what some of you who are maybe Liverpool fans may think. But if you are a Chelsea fan, if you are a rival fan, if you're whatever fan, listen, you're welcome here. This is anyone's home. It's a nice, relaxing place to just consume some good content here, some wholesome content. So big up to Don Hussam, big up to everyone from the raid. Smash up those likes. Let's get this channel likes up, and let's get the subscribe count up. Prime, I'm sorry, you were saying before, Hussam very so politely rated us. Prime?
What were we talking? What was I talking about? Do you remember what I last said?
I remember I had mentioned. Do you think that the progression? Do you think that the development of Jackson would or would not have improved regardless of the competition with Nkunku? Because last season there was no competition for Jackson.
Yeah. Oh, I think what's helped Jackson's improvement is like his own mentality. Like he wants to get better and improve. Again, I said this last year. Jackson under a better coach will improve, which he's been doing under Maresca. Because we know Maresca loves to like work with players individually. He's been doing that with Mudryk, as we can see how Mudryk's been improving. Yes, there's also the Nkuku factor, like how well Nkuku's been doing in playing the Carabao Cup and Conference League games. And people can say it's only Carabao Cup and Conference League, which is true, but we know Nkuku's ability anyway. We know he is a world-class footballer. Potentially, he's a world-class finisher. So if Jackson's not careful, Nkuku can quite easily just step in. And also, Victor Osimhen, up until deadline day, Chelsea were supposed to sign him. Everyone, like John Obi Mikel, who's close with Osimhen, was talking about it being a done deal, basically. So, like, I think all of that is a factor. Jackson is thinking that if I'm not performing, if I don't buck up my ideas, Nkuku will be the first choice. And then we'll sign Osimhen in the summer or in January. And all of a sudden, I'm gone. Jackson's probably thinking that to an extent. So he's like, okay, I've got to play. I've got to perform. If I'm scoring, if I'm doing well, all of a sudden, there's a question, do we need him? And that's what I want. That's what I want. I want Osimhen at Chelsea, but like not to the expense of Chelsea not performing well as a team, you know? So, and there are things Osimhen does that Jackson can't give, like the aerial threat. But there are things Jackson does that Osimhen can't do. Osimhen is not as like fluid as Jackson is. He's not as fluid.
And that's the thing too. Bringing it back to the Nkunku thing, right? It's actually impressive that Jackson has developed Jackson's overall game is so good. And I know what Nick Fadley said here, a proper striker scoring is the main job. Yeah, you're right. I think a proper striker scoring is the main job. But having a striker that can have an overall strong game and have the ability to do just about everything when it comes to football, defend, dribble, have pace, an all-around good, well-built footballer, I think that's important too. I don't want to dismiss that, obviously. But going back to the Nkunku thing, I think it says a lot about Jackson that Enzo Maresca sees Nkunku as a striker in his team. That Jackson is benching Nkunku, and Jackson is the reason why we're having conversations about what if we move Cole Palmer to the right and have Nkunku play as a 10, so on and so forth, to try to see if we can fit both those players. And it's impressive. That alone should be something that we should take into consideration of Jackson, because Jackson is overall so good in his ability to dribble and maintain the ball that I almost do not want to drop him. I think he's important to the team in the way they play. I mean, how do you feel about that, Prime? Did we lose you, Prime? Also, we're not doing this. No, we're slapping you. Yeah, you're back, Prime.
Oh, yeah, Liverpool won't slap us. But yeah, that's why. Do you remember the conversations at the back end of last season that, let's sign a striker and then play Jackson out on the wing?
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't want to drop Jackson because of what he gives us. And even now, I'm still seeing people have conversations of, I saw someone post a thread or something saying, later on in games, 70th minute onwards, bring on Nkunku, take off Sancho, play Jackson on the left, and have Jackson use his legs and link up ability with Nkunku.
Yeah.
And I get it. Jackson is fluid to play in different positions, and we have a lot of options. But I don't know. I'm not. The only way I bench Jackson is if we get a striker that's better than him. I keep saying it. Get me someone better than Jackson, and I'm cool with benching Jackson.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too.
I'm not getting someone who is maybe. I don't want a maybe. I want a guarantee.
Yeah.
Close to a guarantee as possible.
Because that's the other thing too. The way that I'm seeing the striker market right now. Mind you, I got to give kudos to our recruitment team, our scouts. They're finding the strikers, but whether you want to believe if it was fan peer pressure or they just couldn't close a deal or whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is that the striker market right now is a scouting market. There's not a true out and out striker that you can just get and pick off and bring to the team. You can say Osimhen is probably up there. Harry Kane is up there, but he's getting up there in age. He's probably going to look to retire in a few seasons from now. There's not many world-class or close to world-class strikers out there. Gyökeres is yet to... Gyökeres is another impressive one, but who knows how he's going to do outside of Liga NOS. But what I'm trying to get at is that I think something that me and Alexis spoke on that I thought was very interesting is that maybe Chelsea don't go back into the market for a striker. I think maybe in January the move is to wait and see how the season plays out with Jackson and Washington, if we're going to use Washington, and Nkunku as well. And if maybe we actually get enough output from Nkunku and Jackson, maybe we just don't go in. Maybe we don't need to go into the striker market.
I agree. And by the way, we also have Felix who can play up there as a false nine. Palmer can play up there as a false nine.
That is true. Yeah.
We have Mark Yu, who again, people were talking about how good he looked in preseason.
Mm-hmm.
We have options.
That guy's still raw. Yeah.
People are now starting to say we should trust our scouts. Well, these same scouts found Jackson. So trust Jackson because they found him.
And look at Amaridion right now too. I'm so impressed with what Amaridion is doing. And I know that like people were looking at compilations, right? And seeing like, oh, he's not the guy. And I was like, well, maybe if you're looking at compilations, maybe he's not the guy. But now we're seeing what he's doing at Porto. And it's impressive. Maybe he is that guy. You know, it's just, it's neither here nor there. But it's going to be a really interesting season for Jackson. I think, like I said, I think this season is going to be so important for him. I think we're going to see close to 20 goals in the Premier League. If not, we might actually see 20 goals in the Premier League from him, especially in this system that's going to, you know, this system this season has proven to be very, very good when it comes to the attack. We scored 3 goals against West Ham. We scored 4 goals against Brighton. We scored 6 goals against Wolves. People want to say Brighton tax. Well, let's see how many people are scoring 4 or more against Brighton this season. Let's see how often that happens.
But even if it is Brighton tax, that's fine. But
we have 15 GNA this season as a team. We're leading the table. Actually, 16. Sorry.
A team of a consistent top 4 title challenging standard, a team of Chelsea's quality of attack should be able to put 6 goals past Wolves easily. Like, it's just Wolves. Yes, it is just Wolves. They're one of the worst teams in the league, and we beat them 6-0 or we beat them 6-2 like we're supposed to. Like, we battered Brighton 5-2 like we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not overhyping it, but in the past 2 years, we failed to do what we were supposed to do. We
100%.
failed to beat 10-man Burnley. We've struggled against Sheffield United. We've struggled.
Reminded me about 10-man Burnley. Listen, Nottingham Forest is a totally different animal, but 10-man Burnley, that was not a good Burnley side. That was not Nottingham Forest side. It's not comparable.
Marshall, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. We went 1-0 now. We went 1-0 down against Brighton, and I was thinking in my head, "Oh my God, are we going back to last season?" And then we beat them 5-2. Like, we're doing what we're supposed to be. If Man City went 1-0 down against Brighton, I would expect them to win the game 4-1, 5-1. I'd expect them to do that. Even Arsenal, I'd expect them to do that. So what Chelsea that we're doing that now, we're not going to rate it. But if it's Man City, it's amazing mentality. It's amazing mentality from Arsenal. Like, again, it's Chelsea. We're always going to get disrespect until we actually do this consistently and win something. There's always going to be disrespect, which I get. It's fine. Like, people need to see evidence of something to really believe in it, and I'm cool 100%. With it. That's why this season we need a trophy. We need the Conference League and maybe a domestic cup with it. We need something to show that we're actually progressing.
I bring it up, right, because right now Jackson has, how many goals does Jackson have this season? 4 in the Premier League?
4, yes.
Okay, so in this attacking system, I feel that Jackson can get 20 plus goals. It really feels this way. We're scoring goals. We have an actual well-oiled machine when it comes to the attack now. It feels that way, at least, for sure. So, to me, now that you have an environment where Jackson, a player like Jackson, can flourish, can get chances, and listen, this season, time will tell, but he is looking a little bit more prolific. If he can capitalize on that, I don't see why Jackson can't score 20 plus goals this season. And then the whole conversation around him changes. Then people start to rate him. Then people start to say, wow, this guy is what a great signing from. Remember Cole Palmer, right? How this season, people are bringing up the fact that we got Cole Palmer for 40 million pounds. Yeah. But when we first got Cole Palmer, people were criticizing the fact that we paid that much for that player. No one seems to bring up the price tag for Nicolas Jackson. They just see the GNA, they see the misses, the missed comps, and all that stuff. And mind you, we already have a few of those this season. Whatever, strikers miss big chances, and No one's bringing it up. But if Nicolas Jackson were to get 20 plus GA or just 20 plus goals in the Premier League, right? Then people are going to start bringing up the fact that we got him for 35 million euros or pounds.
Marshall, if Jackson scores that goal in the semi-final against Man City, we beat Man United in the FA Cup final. No one's talking about all his misses from last season. People are talking about Jackson turned up in a big game when it mattered for Chelsea. We bought him for £32 million on a steal. What a signing for Chelsea. Chelsea are actually improving. Chelsea are, I can see a plan that Bowley, whatever, they're going through. And that's the thing. That's why trophies matter. Like, for Chelsea, we finished top 4 this season, win Conference League, maybe win the Carabao. Jackson scores in the final, or he assists Cole Palmer in the final. All of a sudden, people will look at these players differently, and these players also will gain that confidence. Because next season, people are already saying this season we get title challenge. Maybe next season is the title challenge season, but this season needs to matter. Then this season is so important. If next season is the year we go and push for a challenge, next summer we go and get the goalkeeper. Maybe we get a centre back. Maybe we get the striker, whichever one of the 3 it is. And we go and push forward more. But that's why this season is so important for Jackson. It's so important for Cole. It's so important for Caicedo. It's so important for Enzo. It's important for Reece to be fit, or at least get over his injuries. Because next season is when we need these players to actually turn it on and be consistent for the whole season.
I agree 100%. This season, I believe that Chelsea will make top 4, right? Like, my prediction was 4th place for Chelsea. And to be fair, I thought last season we would be able to get it, and there was a potential to get it. But but I was very reserved with my prediction, and I said 6 because I was worried that because of the lack of experience that maybe we would capitulate. Turns out it wasn't the lack of experience; it was the lack of fucking brains from a certain Mauricio Pochettino.
I am not a clown.
But regardless, I think that this team. Listen, the end of December we might have a different conversation, but at least this season, I think with Jackson, I think with this team in general, with this coach, I think top 4 is a must. We have to get top 4, and I think it's very, very doable. We look like we're gonna be in a top 4 race, I should say. If we do get top 4 this season, next season, I am expecting a title race, 100%, because next season, I can see us sticking with Jackson, and I think depending on this season, and I really do think that Jackson is going to beat his tally of goals in the Premier League from last season. I do think he's going to beat his tally of goals from last season. And if he does beat his tally of goals from last season, then I do think Jackson can be the striker to take us into a league title, a league run. That him and Cole Palmer, I think that's enough to get us over the line. And mind you, these players are going to improve because they are young. They are going to develop. Mind you, we'll talk about this on tomorrow's show as well, like the whole Mike Penders things. Like, it looks like we might have our future goalkeeper. Who knows? We have to see it first, but based on the scouting and based on their track record, it looks like we're doing a really good job of finding these really talented players. But if we improve on the goalkeeper next season, if we get another DM, which I think we will have another DM, because it's either we're probably going to stick with either Leslie or Andre Santos. And I could see Andre Santos saying next season, we're going to have that depth in that 6th position. We're going to have Kendry Paez coming into this team. Esteval Willian. We're going to be stacked in terms of depth as well as ability. We're going to be back in the Champions League. People are going to take us seriously again. I think Jackson can probably lead the line to a Premier League title charge next season. But we have to show it this season by getting top 4.
Also, like, I said this on a pod I was in a few days ago. Chelsea, I don't think, like for example, that Palace game, 1-0 should be enough to be a good Palace side. It should be that Jackson goal 1-0 should have been enough. Jackson shouldn't have been blamed as to why we drew the game. The reason
100%. I don't blame him. Yeah.
Like, and even like Nottingham Forest as well. Like, we should have been able to win that game 2-1 or 3-1.
Yeah,
but
we got really unlucky that day.
We need to start controlling games better. The Brighton game, the first half, I'm not a fan of how chaotic that game was.
Yeah.
And even the first half against Wolves, I'm not a fan of that. And Maresca 100%. Said that himself. We need to start controlling games. Like, I don't mind going through certain games. We win 1-0 or we win 2-1. That's fine. Control the game better.
Yeah.
That takes the pressure off our defense. That takes the pressure off Sanchez in goal. It shouldn't be a basketball game where Cole's having to make like last ditch blocks and whatever. That shouldn't be happening all the time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. I think, which by the way, ladies and gents, there's a reason why we're talking the way we're talking about Jackson. If you didn't already, or if you are interested, we did react to Culture Cam's assessment of Jackson. He whips out a lot of stats. He whips out a lot of facts that, you know, people don't take into consideration when looking at Jackson. And I think he puts it in a way that makes it make a lot more sense. So I do urge anyone who just tuned in from the Hussam Raim or just tuned in general, go back and watch our reaction to that video and see the conversation. I think it's really good content, and I think it gives a really good insight on what is a player who I think is really, really misunderstood. And this season, he's going to show that he is, you know, a good player. And I think Jackson is a very good footballer. He just needs to refine the finishing aspect of his game. And I think Prime agrees with that as well. I guess to conclude, I mean, final thoughts, Prime.
Listen, if Kai Havertz is the second best striker in this league, then I can say Jackson's one of the best forwards in this league. I don't care. I'll say what I want.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is what I mean. Like I see, going from 14 goals to 20 in this team where you have Sancho and Mudryk behind you, 20 goals and more is more than possible. That's what I'm saying. So,
that's why I said Jackson's finishing doesn't need to improve. It's the fact of we're creating so much chances for him. He's going to score more goals.
Yeah. The
percentage doesn't have to improve. It's just the creativity that's improving for him. And again, bro, if Jackson was more clinical with the creativity he has, imagine what he can do, and imagine what Chelsea could do.
100%. So time is going to tell with Jackson. We'll be keeping a close eye on him and just.
I agree. I see. The last comment he said, his heading. I agree. Jackson needs to work on that, but also Chelsea need to put in better deliveries in the box. Our deliveries without Reece James is poor. It's very, very poor.
Yeah. But yeah, to conclude, ladies and gents, be sure to watch the Culture Cams video. I put the link in the description below. I also, rewind back the stream so you can watch our reaction to it. If you haven't done so already, big up to Don Hussam for the raid. Smash up the like, subscribe if you're new here. Nice to see some new faces here, some returning ones as well. Big up to you guys as well. No raid because no one is live right now. We'll be back tomorrow for the Casually Chelsea show to talk about a few news that came out and a few topics that we didn't discuss from last stream. But that being said, thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the react. Be sure to support Culture Cam's the original video by watching the video yourself, giving it a like. Give this video a like. Check out the links in the description as well. All the info there. Leave a comment if you're watching this in the future. Let us know your thoughts as well. And then last but not least, check out the memberships because there's 4 different tiers starting at 99p. And at the proper casual tier, we give shout outs at the end of every show. And those shout outs are going to go to EE, Hassan Nawaz, Dark, Adrian, A. Soliman, and Scott. So big up to you guys. Thank you so much for your support. We'll be back tomorrow. And as always, ladies and gents, be sure to have a wonderful night and stay casual. Peace.